That's so low. Grand Rising, good people. Hold on, we got the wrong camera going. We got the wrong camera going. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm moving with a purpose, bigger than a service. You can never, even if you rehearse this, we own it.
There we go.
Yeah, hurts it.
I like that angle a little better. What about y'all? I like that angle. Happy Friday. Grand Rising, good people. Hope all is well. Welcome, welcome. I didn't like the way that was sounding. Probably because I got these headphones on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got a lot to discuss. Who's already in the building? We got Big Bro Steve in the building. Professor. We got Dr. King in the building. All right. So as you're joining, please make sure that you like, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We got a lot to talk about today. It's funny because, sometimes I wake up and I'll have the whole list of what we're going to discuss already ironed out, or I think it's already ironed out. And then I question whether or not I should add some things. And this is one of those days. And Tucker Carlson did an interview. Who I believe it's with. Actually, hold on, let me put this on. Let me put my mic on. I didn't know whether I was going to wear it here or we'll do up here today. So he has an interview. I believe it's with a gentleman. It's a Green Beret. Is it Tony Aguilar? I believe his name is Tony Aguilar. He does an interview with Tucker Carlson that goes into detail about his experiences being in Israel, Palestine, in that area, with what a lot of these people are reporting on as far as the food and everything. He does an hour and 20-minute interview that I was like, I don't know if I want to jump into this. And then there's another story on here where there's this Israeli mother, wild situation. It's an Israeli mother who's making it her mission to block the aid. So there's people that are living in Israel that want Israel to win the war, obviously. And they're now taking it upon themselves to block the aid that's coming in because they believe that that's going to ultimately get to Hamas, and anything that gets to Hamas is not good for as far as a war strategy. So they want to block the aid. So there's just a lot of it's just a lot going on, man. It's just a lot going on, and it really just brings me back to a place where we have to sit back and say that no war can be justified, because from their perspective, like the people that I'm discussing, let's take this lady, for instance. If it's war, and her mindset is it's war, the objective is to destroy them by any means. Now, that necessary, the last part of that, by any means necessary, if you're familiar with that quote, I think the necessary really goes out the window, and it's all just based on individual perspective. What's necessary? The goal is to destroy the enemy by any means. It doesn't matter if I have to destroy other people that are along with those people. It doesn't matter. And it's funny because Dave Smith always brings up this analogy. He always brings up this analogy where he's like, okay, think about the situation between Israel and Palestine, and if it's justified, killing so many civilians. And what a lot of other people say, they always try to bring up other wars to justify how we should be able to kill a certain amount of people in this war. And for one, I don't think we should be justifying the current situations based on how we used to do war years ago. But I'll give you an example. So this shooter in New York City, right? This New York City shooter, he came in, and I think we have a story on him as well later on. But he came into the building, and he obviously got off on the floor, started shooting people, right? Doesn't matter for this conversation where he was trying to go. Would it have been right for them to say, and this is the analogy that Dave Smith, and it's a little bit different, where Dave Smith says, hey, we got a couple group of people that they're shooting up a school. Would it be right to say, let's blow up the whole school in order to get rid of the shooter? No, you would obviously try to figure out a situation where you're not causing the other people that are in the building harm in order to eliminate this terroristic threat. So that's how, and even when I was watching that shooter video, that's kind of the thought that came to mind. But I just think that it's you can't tell somebody when they're fighting somebody, hey, only go 80%. Most people, out of fear of their own lives, out of fear out of their own personal safety, are going to go as hard as they can. They're not going to be able to say, this person's 80, let me give them about 75%, because that puts them in harm's way. And that's the mentality of a lot of people that I'm seeing when it comes to this war. And I'm seeing certain people that I may know, or certain people that I may have watched for a while, let's say online with podcasting, and their mindset is so vicious and so cutthroat. It's just because you can't scale back a lot of people when it comes to war. War means there is no rules to a lot of people. And you'll see if we play a little bit of this Tucker Carlson interview with Tony Aguilar, he's like, yo, there's rules to war. Like, you can't just do whatever you want to the opposition. He was describing how different situations and different scenarios where if somebody, even somebody who's actively in the opposing army, once they give up, you have to treat them a certain way. You have to give them food, give them water, all these different things. And then for us to have this mindset we're seeing towards the civilians who aren't even fighting, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. So let me go through a little bit of the schedule. So we got a cool video from Paul Pierce talking about the power of confidence. We have a quote from, I believe, Dorothy Day. It's via Representative James Tallarico. Cool interview with James Tallarico and Joe Rogan. Then we have this possibly white shooter situation that we'll get into. We got Jason Whitlock calling out some Negro culture at ESPN, and we'll kind of tie the Shannon Sharpe situation into that. Kamala Harris, apparently, we probably won't even get into that, honestly, but apparently Kamala Harris has decided not to run for governor. We got a funny situation with the WNBA, and then we'll get into some of the more serious videos. I don't know what order we'll go through, to be totally honest, but yeah. This is the situation that we're in. Let's get to, so I wanted to start off with, matter of fact, I'll start off with this quote. So speaking of what we're speaking of, when it comes to, Palestine and Israel. So this interesting Dorothy Day quote, and shout out to Boogie in the building, shout out to Unc, and shout out to Honest. Hope all is well. All right. So Israel, Palestine, when I'm sitting here talking about, like, you can't go 80% against your enemy, most of the time to protect yourself, you'll go as hard as you can to whatever limits you have. And this quote with James Tallarico, he recited this quote from Dorothy Day, and I believe I'm getting it correct when it says, you only truly love God as much as you love the person you love the least. You only truly love God as much as you love the person you love the least. Now, everybody can have their own interpretation on that one. Everybody can have their own interpretation on that one. This is my interpretation. You only truly love God as much as you love the person you love the least. God, to me, and I think I've said it to y'all before, represents our connection to each other. Our connection to each other. Our godly behavior is how we are all connected. A lot of people will say, well, God's children, that's how we're connected. But to me, our godliness is our connection with each other, our connection with nature, all these different things, but obviously specifically and more closely related to each other. So we can only love God. All these people that are doing all these evil acts, demonic acts, ungodly acts in the name of God, to me, it's just the greatest contradiction that you can have. Because to truly love God would obviously be to not only love what God created, but to love our what God is, our connection to each other. So if we're killing other people, then isn't that the most disrespectful thing that you can do to God? Isn't that the most ungodly thing that you can do? And then you justify it by saying what? Well, I'm doing this because I'm fighting for something that God gave us. God gave us this land, so therefore I'm going to fight for it. Therefore, I'm willing to kill for it. But God also gave us each other, right? God also gave us and I hate to sound preachy because I'm not the super religious type, but from a spiritual standpoint, it's just simple. Either we're okay with death, destruction, evil, demonic actions, or we're not. And the only thing that can solve this issue that we're going through and that we will continue to go through is to not, you could sit here and say love, right? It's the oneness, us to see each other connected. We were having this conversation the other day with my big bro and big sis, Shaga and Pete. And it was kind of a depressing conversation almost. It's one of those things where you got to remind yourself like, all right, we're in a bad place, but that means there's an opportunity for us to do some great things to get us back in the right direction. And the only solution that we could find to get people to look at things from a perspective that did not make you want to kill somebody or justify killing somebody is to see that we're all one. That's it. That was the only thing that we can come back to. The only thing, as soon as we allow the separation, as soon as we, whether it's religion, whether it's race, whether it's any other thing, as soon as we allow all of these other identities that we associate with to take precedence and we hold those other identities in higher regards than our godly identity, then we're just at war. We're just that much closer to war. So I thought that was an interesting quote. I'll say it again. You only truly love God as much as you love the person you love the least. And I believe that's a Dorothy Day quote, and that was via James Tallarico. So yeah, that one, that's one of those ones that I probably very challenging for, very challenging for all of us, right? Very challenging for all of us. It's a lot easier said than done. All right. Oh, shout out to Big Bro Pete in the building. I wasn't even looking at the comments. So Steve wrote, war is a place where young people who don't know each other and don't hate each other kill each other by the decision of older rulers who know each other and hate each other but don't kill. This is what it seems, Steve. It's just like whether it's war between Israel and Palestine, whether it's war between these local street gangs, Bloods and Crips, like the head of these gangs, even if you think about it like a street gang, the head of these street gangs, they know each other. They're not the ones that are warned. They're the ones that are, putting the battery in the back of all their dojers, all their pawns that they have, and they have to convince them to hate the other side more than you hate because they're fighting for you. Whether it's sports, you think these owners hate each other? Some of them may, but they probably hang out together. All that time. I don't want to say too. Yeah, these owners, I'm sure. Think about damn, what group was I about to say? I was about to use another example of people that are, on the part of the higher ups at work, my work, right? I'll tell you an example just with my client. It's in healthcare, I don't know if y'all are aware of, but it's like real legit beef. Like, especially when you're on that soldier line, when you're on the front line, and let's say I'm a marketer, let's say. I hate that term. But the actual people who are our clients, the surgery centers, the hospitals, those people, they probably really work together, probably used to work together, but they'll convince us to hate each other. So we'll go to these seminars and it's like, literally like, that's the ops over there that work for the opposing surgery. So it's like, the people at the top, they're probably chilling, spending money, like whatever. Uncle wrote, hatred for a race of people is what that is pure hatred for a race of people is what that is pure mayhem. War means that there is a consistency in battle between two opposite forces. Yeah, and another thing I didn't realize, so in this interview with Tucker Carlson and James Aguilar, he mentioned something, and I may not be getting it exactly right, but he was talking about how it's an actual war crime or a violation of some policy when you look at a group of people and you associate and attribute like terrorist, like you it's like looking at Palestine and putting them all in that Hamas bag. I didn't realize that that's actually a war crime. I mean, it makes sense. We shouldn't be able to look at Palestinians, which a lot of people are. And I mean, I'm seeing quotes like wild stuff online where it's like people have a total disregard to Palestinian life because they're acting as if all Palestinians are team Hamas or rocking with Hamas or on Hamas, a part of Hamas, however you want to look at it. So it's interesting. So let's actually pivot. I had this this Paul Pierce interview pulled up, but let me kind of show y'all, since we're talking about it, and I kind of was, I guess, avoiding it a little bit because I'll tell y'all what happens. I'll tell y'all what happens. It's like in school, or it's like in any situation where can I make this analogy? All right. So Israel is clearly far more superior when it comes to the military than Hamas. And Palestine, obviously, those are civilians. So clearly, Israel, they're far more superior. That's not anything to make us, make this group a victim or to make this group out to be evil. It just is what it is. So in this current situation where it's overwhelming, the defeat that is occurring, anybody that gets involved in the situation, it's going to seem as if we're protecting the people that are losing, right? And trying to diminish the people that are winning. It's almost like a situation where you got, this is going to be a wild analogy, but you have like let's say with very wealthy people, like in a quote unquote capitalist society, when you have somebody that comes in and says, hey, we just want to make sure that it's a little more fair, we want to just make the person with all the money, they're looking at it like, yo, I don't have a problem with society. Life is good. Don't come in here. I want less government. I don't want anybody involved in me, helping me. I don't want anything because my life is up here. But the person at the bottom, their perspective is going to be a little different because they're in need of some help, perhaps. You know what I mean? Their feeling on it is like, yeah, please, somebody come in and help this because I want to change this situation. The Israelis are perfectly comfortable, the military, in this war that is going on because they're far superior than Hamas and Palestine. So now when anybody interjects or anybody calls out the obvious and says like, hey, there's a lot of civilians dying on this side, it comes across in a way to Israelis and perhaps a lot of Jewish people overall that they're being attacked because we're trying to scale them back to realize like, hey, this is getting a bit out of hand, or it's been out of hand. It's just too extreme what's going on. So let's play. I'm going to play this video. And I wanted to kind of preface, what I was saying with that, because I'm realizing that I don't know if empathize is the right word, but with a lot that's going on, I can see how I'm not surprised that people behave like this when they're at war. I'm not surprised that people behave like this when they're at war. But I am surprised that when so many people excuse the behavior, like the two people that are fighting, I understand they're going to be going at it. But the other people, the other adults in the room are supposed to step in and say, hey, this is getting out of hand. Just like it would be in a situation in our workplace, in our home, whatever it is. You see two people that are clearly bugging out and crashing out, or one person that is clearly beating the hell out of somebody. Eventually, somebody comes in. It doesn't even matter if that person's on your side. Like, it'd be like, all right, bro, easy. Like, all right, you gonna kill them. You get what I'm saying? At what point are people going to step in and say this is enough? Because the example that I'm getting ready to show you, people are never going to police themselves. So let me stop talking. I've been talking y'all ear off for half an hour, and let's get into this video.
Most mobilized activists in Israel are radical groups like Sav Tesha, led by Reut Ben-Haim. Today they're trying to block vital food aid getting to Gaza.
אנחנו רוצים חסימה אפקטיבית לאורך שעות, אנחנו רוצים לחסום לחמאס את האוכל.
She's sharing her message to her online followers.
בסדר? עוד כמה שעות מחבלים, חמושים, הולכים לטפס על המשאיות האלה ולחגוג. הם לא דורכים על המשאיות, הם דורכים על הכבוד של עם ישראל, הם דורכים עלינו. מאיפה לארגון הטרור הקטן והקיקיוני הזה יש יכולת להמשיך לפגוע בנו? מאיפה? כי אנחנו מזינים אותם.
So for those that can't look at the words, or the closed caption, how come this little marginal terror organization,
מאיפה לארגון הטרור הקטן והקיקיוני?
how come this little marginal terror organization still has the ability to hurt us? When you're at war, it seems like no matter how much you can be defeating the other side, you still see yourself as a victim, as something happened to you and you're defending yourself. And we can sit here, look, I'm not going to have the whole argument of when this started. I think people can clearly understand that that's depending on whose perspective you're hearing it from. From an Israeli perspective, all of this started on October 7th, or at least this part of the revenge and this part of the response to it. They're responding to something that was initiated on October 7th. To Hamas, and I'm sure a lot of Palestinians who are not Hamas, just civilians, I'm sure they believe that this started long before October 7th. I'm sure that we identify where things start based on what our pain point is, not necessarily the pain that we put on somebody else. So for example, if I'm a Palestinian and my home was taken away from me 60 years ago, 70 years ago, then I would say that that's where everything started, because that's when I put in my mind, I'm stopping at nothing to get my house back. But it's just like the Game of Thrones. You get to a certain point, you don't know where the war started. Was it this? Was it that? The point is, we're here now, and she clearly sees herself as a victim in this. And that victimhood that she's embracing is what she's using to rationalize going to whatever extreme measures she believes that she has to in order to stop this terrorist group.
יש יכולת להמשיך לפגוע בנו. מאיפה? כי אנחנו מזינים אותם.
They're on their way to Nitzana, one of 3 aid entry points into Gaza that remain open. According to one Israeli think tank, 2/3 of Jewish Israelis oppose the transfer of humanitarian aid to Gaza residents. What I can't understand is how a mother of 8 is trying to block food to starving children in Gaza.
Okay.
How's your baby doing?
It's hard, but I can't stay at home.
Are you not concerned that by blocking the aid going to Gaza, a lot of Palestinians who are already suffering are starving?
It's a wrong question, okay? Because the aid gets to Hamas. The aid goes to Hamas.
We hit a roadblock with.
There's some things that I want to bring up as questions that I don't know how y'all are going to respond. Who's more ruthless, men or women? Who's more ruthless, do y'all think? And I'm not saying this is not one of these red pill, blue pill, men versus women conversations. I'm just bringing it up because it's something that has come up in my mind. Who's more ruthless? Now, we all have had that conversation about, oh, well, perhaps women are more emotional, maybe men, or whatever. The reason why I'm bringing it up, let me give some context around that. Okay, so Unc said women. I've had conversations with different people, like regarding slavery and about how ruthless a lot of the slave owners' wives were. And I bring that up because when we talk about our culture, especially not having fathers in the household, one of the things that we always bring up is how emotionalized it makes people, right? How emotionalized the young boys are growing up to be, right? We've had that conversation, right? So just stick with me. This is not I'm not criticizing women. I'm not criticizing men. This is not what this conversation is that I'm trying to have with y'all. But I'm realizing that, or maybe I'm not realizing it, men are supposed to bring some structure and some fairness, even in situations that we are super emotionally engaged in. Men are supposed to be the ones that say, hey, I know I know my son's competing with that other team, but no, that's not right. If we had an unfair advantage, then we need to let somebody know. We're not just accepting that win if we had to get it by way of something that violated our principles and morals and values. Men are supposed to set the principles, morals, and values. Women, just like in the wild, when you see a mother go to extreme lengths to protect their child, When I look at these nature shows and I either see a giraffe being chased or any of these animals that lions are hunting, and you'll see a mother exhaust herself, go to the greatest lengths to protect that child, do anything. I see human beings as the same way. A mother protecting her child is a bit different. Not to say that a father won't obviously protect a child. So this is, I guess you could say, this isn't a criticism of women. This is actually something that I see as a positive. Women will go to the greatest lengths and extents to protect their children. And with a woman like this, if she sees a group like Hamas as a potential threat to her children and her lives and her family, then she's going to rationalize doing any and everything in order to eliminate this threat. It doesn't matter if she has to put Palestinians in the category of Hamas. It doesn't matter if she has to starve all the Palestinians, if that means starving Hamas as well. That's their mindset. So I don't know why I brought that up, but it's just an observation that I have when I'm going through the video. It just is what it is. Now, maybe y'all see it differently, perhaps, but it's just an observation. In my opinion, ma'am, with all due respect, go home. With all due respect, go home. Unc wrote, I would much prefer to be by my dad be whooped by my dad than by my mother any day of the week. A female grizzly bear is more dangerous than a male grizzly bear. Lioness will fight to the end. A male tiger or lion will take off if he's injured or knows he can't win. A female will fight to the end. I believe that. Let's keep going.
The border police. There's blurred lines between Reut and those there to enforce the law.
Like, how can you have a baby on your back, but then you're preventing the
But Mum is still on her mission to get to the border. Since the beginning of the onslaught in Gaza, the delivery of food has been weaponized. In March of this year, UN experts called out Israel's imposed starvation. The first item of the ICC arrest warrant request says Prime Minister Netanyahu and his defense minister bear criminal responsibility for the starvation of civilians in Gaza. Hunger, terror, death. There's no respite for the Palestinians. I return to the activists blocking the aid. It seems the echo chamber between the Israeli mainstream media and social media is encouraging this kind of direct action. Rayot and her team have reached the crossing point into Gaza.
צריכים פה יותר אנשים בפעם הבאה, זה לא יכול להיות. תראו איזה אלימות, אלימות, אלימות.
Rayot's live stream continues at the border fence.
של חטופה.
As she tends to her baby, I meet another activist from the group.
So have you managed to block the gate now?
Yeah, the gate is closed, as you can see here. We closed it, and the gate will remain closed until they evacuate us if they manage to.
The aid is being blocked, people are starving, and Israel's responsible for that.
The ones who are responsible is Hamas. They are the legitimate government of Gaza. They need to take responsibility. We are at war. It is the war. And I want Israel to win that war, and we need to put pressure on Hamas. And this is the right and the most efficient way to do so.
Yo, this is, it just goes to show you how extreme people will get. There's no, and let me be very clear. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm not saying that they're wrong and right, because it depends on what scale you're judging them on. What I'm saying is now I think I could say that it's evil. Now, whether you think it's justified evil, that's what I mean. Like, I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I could say it's ungodly. Let me keep going. Let me keep going. Let me keep going.
For the Savtasha group, their blocking is a success. No aid trucks got through that day. In the ensuing weeks, local media identifies some activists from the group ransacking aid trucks. Individuals within the Israeli forces reportedly tipped them off about where to target. Young settlers also stepped in, beating up drivers, looting aid, and even torching trucks heading to Gaza. The extremism reflected in these activists, both online and in the mainstream media, is coming from the top, from the Prime Minister himself, calling up biblical references of brutal retaliation. To his defense minister, calling up.
Listen to what Bibi just said. I'll read it. They are committed to wiping this evil.
The extremism reflected in these activists, both online and in the mainstream media, is coming from the top, from the Prime Minister himself, calling up biblical references of brutal.
The people and its entire leadership embrace them and believe. Hold on.
Retaliation.
The Bible commands us to remember what Amalek has done to us. When he said that the people, I assume that he's talking about the people have bought into Hamas, the people and its entire leadership embrace them and believe in them. Is he trying to say that all the Palestinians believe and embrace Hamas in order to rile up his own people? I'm really not confused. I'm confused on this, and it's a translation, so I don't want to take him out of context.
Biblical references of brutal retaliation.
זכור את אשר עשה לך עמלק, נצטווינו.
To his defense minister.
Let me ask y'all this question. Should the Bible justify what we're allowed to do? Like, should we be citing the Bible to justify what we should do towards somebody else in a current war situation in 2025? The Bible is outdated. People will use it to justify and to take literally certain verses when it suits their purpose, but it's outdated. It requires us to use too much of our own interpretation of it for us to be using it to condone war crimes.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
And his far-right coalition partner, Itamar Ben-Gvir.
We are fighting against human animals. We are fighting against human animals and we are acting accordingly. You see, it's one thing to, this is like a situation where, you know how in sports, you have like people like Draymond Green or like that dude on the Detroit Pistons. I don't know his name, but he's always getting into fights with everybody. Or you got a guy like, even like a Dennis Rodman, or you get like these enforcer type of players. Or like some of the Boston Celtics, they had like a McHale, or I believe they had some of these players on their teams. You don't mind when that player's on your team, but you hate it when that player's on the other team. They may be doing stuff a little dirty, you know, doing stuff that's getting under the skin of the other players, violating certain rules and principles, but that's my teammate. So, you know, it suits my interest. So therefore I condone it. But if that person was on the other team, I would be calling out the bad behavior that they're doing, right? But we condone it when they're on our side. And I say that to say, like, it's easy to have a perspective that the people that you're fighting against are inhumane, are human animals, are terrorists. But then what we don't realize is the things that you're doing to fight against them is more inhumane than even the things that you accuse them of doing. Right? And haven't the news articles kind of pointed this out? Both Israeli news articles as well as Palestinian articles. So it just, we just got to do better.
And his far-right coalition partner, Itamar Ben-Gvir, seen here at a rally in this clip shared online.
All right, so let's hold off on this. Hold on. All right, IROC in the building. So IROC wrote, "War is ugly. I believe at one point in human history, it was a necessity. I think we're at a point now where, again, we need to evolve solving conflict." And I get what you're saying, IROC. But I disagree. But I'm gonna tell you why I disagree. I don't think war is ever necessary. I think it's just more justified for whatever reason. You take some of the wars that we're talking about, some of the wars where people were killed the most. Now, if you say, was a civil war justified? Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we could justify it, but, or I guess we could say it was a necessity, but it really wasn't a necessity. It was only a necessity based on people acting like idiots and living evil, you know, living in a demonic way where you think that you can enslave somebody based on the color of their skin, or enslave somebody for any other reason, because slavery had been going on obviously not just with America. You look at the Arab slave trade, you look at the Crusades, you look at Manifest Destiny, you look at all these different wars that were fought in the name of what? In the name of what? What did Steve just say earlier? Like, it's like just something, war is one of those things where, you know, people who don't know each other are fighting people who they don't hate, and they're convinced to hate this other group. What have the wars been fought? To get some land, to steal land? You know, you look at some of the wars that were fought here, some of the wars that were fought, or some of the wars that are still being fought in the Middle East. The wars that have happened with people trying to conquer and colonize much of the world. That's not a necessity. It was just justified in the name of God because those people that we're taking the land from, they're less than us, if we're just looking at it being real. When you say that you can conquer, when in the Bible or any of these other books or any of these other rationalizations, they say that you can take a land if they're not praising the same God that you praise, or the same, using the same religion to praise that God, right? It's all the same God, whatever. Then you're able to take that land. Like, that's not necessity. But I get what you're saying. You're saying the necessity is to fight against that. Self-defense, cool. But then we'll always get to a position where now we're arguing like who's on the defense and what's a justified defense. That in itself is a sin. Ben Wallace, not Ben Wallace. I didn't think Ben Wallace was a dirty player. Ben Wallace is not trying to fight everybody. There's a guy, Steven something. There's a dude on the Pistons right now who tries to fight everybody. Animals, the powers that be have to and this is exactly. Steve wrote, animals, the powers that be have to dehumanize a group in order to fully engage the minions to do unspeakable acts of violence and feel good about it. That's why they have to say all these things. These people are not animals. How? Let me ask y'all this. Just looking at it from this standpoint. And maybe this is one of those scenarios where people who seem to fight the hardest against each other, y'all got a lot more similarities than maybe a lot of others around the world. And the reason why I would say that Israel and Palestinians, perhaps y'all have a lot more similarities than y'all know or are willing to admit, is because I don't know of another group of people currently or in the past. Well, just look at what's happening now and just focus on y'all. Israel is willing to go to whatever risk or go to whatever extent, lengths to defend. And I believe one of their mottos is like strike first or something like that. There's some type of strike first motto. Let me hold on. Israeli motto, strike first. But they're willing to go to whatever extent. It talks about it in the Jewish, if someone is coming to kill you, when one comes to kill you, rise early and kill first. So we have that on one side. And what are you doing it for? You're protecting your land, right? Your land, the land that God gave you. So you're willing to go to whatever extent, lengths to protect your land. Isn't that the exact same thing that Hamas is doing? Isn't that the same thing that Palestinians are doing? A lot of them. They're fighting for what they believe is their land. Now, the only difference in the situation is obviously Israel believes that the land was given to them by God, and Palestinians, I'm not sure if they believe that it was given to them by God, but my home was here. Like I was here. Like, and when I say I'm not sure if they believe that it was given to them by God, I don't know how anybody believes that a piece of land was given to them by God, but they believe that it's their land. So you got two groups that are willing to go to whatever length to justify fighting for their land. They seem to be pretty similar to me. That seems to be pretty similar. All right, so I want to take a little bit of a turn, lighten it up somewhat, but talk about this situation with Shannon Sharpe and ESPN, and then we'll get back to the video with Tucker Carlson in that interview. We'll probably watch as much of that as we can, and may stay a little bit later today because I owed y'all a Wednesday show and I wasn't able to jump on. But let me share this tab, and yeah. All right, so we're getting ready to get into this Jason Whitlock. So Jason Whitlock is calling out ESPN and I'm gonna just call it nigga culture that they've condoned there. And I want us to have a conversation not just about ESPN, but how we've seen this clown culture where a lot of wealthy people will put people in a position to make a lot of money entertaining people at the expense of it spreading a poisonous culture throughout their group. So let's get into this video. You guys let me know your thoughts. Of course, like, subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll take a little bit of a Israel-Palestine break with this video here.
The clown car, the Disney clown car that Bob Iger has built. He has built an amazing clown car, and it's filled with, I'm just keeping it real here. I have to do it. You guys know what I do here. Just keeping it real. It's filled with black guys. Black guys that are compromised, black guys that got a little criminal edge to them, black guys that are willing to be buffoonish, black guys that are willing to be feminized, black guys that will jump whenever Bob Iger and Disney tells them to jump. How do you get someone to do that? You have to get someone whose morality is very fungible. You have to get someone who's shady enough and corrupt enough that they'll do anything for money. And no one's better in the sports media space at identifying and cutting deals with former athletes and even someone like Stephen A. Smith, who has a fraudulent background. No one is better at identifying people that can be easily controlled, easily used to promote buffoonery and debauchery, and to stand as symbols that, hey, America, the biggest problem in the world is these ignorant, buffoonish, criminal black people. And so Bob Iger, he knows how to identify those people. He knows how, hey, go look over here at these criminal black people that we're paying millions of dollars. He's basically brought the rap music industry to sports television. This is his gift to American society. He's built an amazing clown car. And the clown car crashed and burned over the last 24, 48 hours to the point that he had to cut bait and distance himself from one of his favorite clowns, Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe, it was announced yesterday that ESPN was firing him. And I think it's connected to the reason why it was announced yesterday. Somewhat, it was a good news dump to do it yesterday because Gilbert Arenas, who appears on First Take and who has Gil's Arena, the podcast that's been very popular over YouTube. He recently joined the First Take's Stephen A. Smith clown car that Bob Iger has constructed over with First Take. Gilbert Arenas arrested a federal indictment accusing him of being in collusion with some pretty shady crime figures, including someone heavily involved in an Israeli crime syndicate that Gilbert was involved in staging, hosting, using a home that he was renting or whatever to host high-stakes poker games and other gambling activities. I think it's one count of conspiracy against Gilbert Arenas. So that news broke yesterday. And the day before that, the news broke about Marcus Morris, the longtime NBA player who between...
All right, real quick. I just want to jump in here. The reason why I'm showing this is because it's just another example of this guy that he's talking about, Bob Iger. Y'all remember the Leor Cohen videos that Dame Dash used to always call him out as far as being a culture vulture. And Leor Cohen was the guy at the radio station when I believe he was at the Breakfast Club. Charlemagne asked him a question and he said, Leor, you're putting out all this. Let me just show it to y'all. Right? Why not show it to y'all? But pretty much he was calling him out for putting out certain things to the Black community and profiting off of it, certain things that he would not be okay with putting out to his Jewish community, and if it was negatively impacting his Jewish community. So look at this video.
Really rough, particularly on women. But I think it helped change the course of the crack epidemic. I don't know what's this opioid thing, man.
Well, being a crackhead wasn't cool back then. Being a crackhead wasn't cool. Now they seem like they're making it cool to be drinking lean and syrup and
it's the most dangerous. It's the most dangerous thing that's facing our society.
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical, though. You're saying
it's opportunistic.
Yeah.
I got people to feed. I got a business to run.
You're gonna make Dame Dash take this clip and call you a culture vulture.
Who's Dame Dash? You brought him up. I don't even know him. So you bring his name up. I don't even know him. So
y'all made a lot of money together.
Made a lot of money.
Come on, Leo. Don't do that to him.
I don't know him.
We see this happen repeatedly. Well, when it comes to culture, who sets the culture? When we look at, and I know that this is perhaps me more so focusing on Black culture, but this is the same thing. When Shannon Sharpe, I don't watch Shannon Sharpe's Nightcap show. I remember watching it and I'm like, yo, why is he, like, everything just seemed too opportunistic. Like Shannon Sharpe just seemed like he was one of these thirsty dudes that would do anything for money. He's talking about sex pills. Remember how he had the, think about his last year and a half. He had the recording go live where he's having sex with the girl on Instagram Live and claiming that he didn't do it on purpose. I think the majority of people think that he did it on purpose. This is when he was facing all these rumors of him being gay. So I guess he wanted to leak something that showed him having sex with a woman. The next thing you know, he's on that show. He's apologizing to his family and what he's put them through. But then 30 seconds later, he's selling sex pills. It's like, if you were really sorry and felt embarrassed about what you did, would you be using it as an opportunity to make some money? People justify anything when it comes to putting money in their pockets. And they'll put out a certain type of culture where it doesn't matter. So I just want to give y'all some context about why Jason Whitlock is calling out Bob Iger. A lot of these people that we put in front of the cameras, these are not the, perhaps you could say, straight cut people that you would be perfectly fine with your kids idolizing and looking up to. And even when they get in these positions, what do you see Shannon Sharpe doing? When did Shannon Sharpe start to blow up? Let's be honest. When did Shannon Sharpe start to blow up? When he started doing all the goofy stuff with Skip Bayless, where he was talking about smoking Black and Milds, drinking Hennessy. He had his dumb stocking cap on, and knowing that he doesn't do any of that in real life. But he was playing a particular role, pushing it to the audience because he thought that's what the audience wanted to see. And that's what would ultimately boost his ratings and make more money for him. People are compromised on a bunch of different levels. And this is why Jason Whitlock perhaps left Fox Sports and decided to do his own thing and not take as much money. So he's able to call out a lot of this stuff that we see. A lot of the people that we look up to, our idols, our mentors, you know, the people that we idolize, ultimately they become our mentors. They're leading us down a terrible path, and we allow them to create a culture that is terrible for us. That's why I get pissed off when I see Kamala Harris decide to bring Meg Thee Stallion out to rile black people up at her convention. It's like, damn, why are you even giving Meg Thee Stallion your brand, your stage, Kamala Harris, somebody that we're supposed to be holding in high regards? We're voting for a president. And we want to see you bringing out Meg Thee Stallion. And it's not just Kamala Harris. It's what we see and what we allow and what we condone on a regular basis. On a regular basis. And Vons, I'm glad that you said that you're not a Jason Whitlock fan, but I see the point. I'm glad that you're able to see the point, even if you're not a Whitlock fan. And this is something that I'm seeing with a lot of people that weren't fans of, like, let's say, a Tucker Carlson. A lot of people weren't fans of Candace Owens, weren't fans of a lot of these people that were seen as more radical MAGA people in a lot of ways. But then as soon as they call out something or are on the same side of you in another way, it's like, okay, now I'm starting to look to them and maybe I'm a little bit more open to seeing what they have to say. And that's a good thing. I had a conversation with somebody close to me in my family, and they were saying, you know, I'm looking at Tucker Carlson a little differently. Maybe because you already had in your mind what? Tucker Carlson, Dominion lawsuit. Oh, he was trying to. Same thing with a guy like Alex Jones. Well, he was a Columbine. He was so disrespectful in that situation. Yeah, but have you, he's apologized for that. Dude, pretty much, they came for his life, his entire, well-being. Have you looked at some of the other stuff that he said and called out and got right? So it's good for us to be able to see. I only brought that up to Vons's point, to highlight the fact that even when we don't like somebody, that's the thing. Most of the time, the people that we don't like are going to call out a lot of the stuff that are our vices. It's easy to like a Shannon Sharpe. It's easy to like Shannon Sharpe. It's easy to like a lot of these rappers. It's easy to like a Meg Thee Stallion. Why? She's bad. She got a nice body. She's sexy, right? It's easy to like that. As a girl, as a woman, it's easy to like that. I don't know if it's easy to like a Candace Owens. I don't know if it's easy to like a Jason Whitlock. I don't know if it's easy to like the people that call out the things that lean into our vices. I don't know if that's the case, but let's keep going. Let's keep going. These people in the public eye present a persona that plays to the audience that they want to influence. That's all it is. That's all it is. Skeeg wrote Joe Rogan as well. Tucker be calling out Trump. See? And this, Vons, I'm so glad that you are are observing this. I think the majority, more of us need to show this level of maturity. Tucker be calling Trump out on his BS. This is what I was just having a conversation with the other day about, where when it comes to these Democrats, did we once see a Democrat call out Joe Biden on the fact that he wasn't even being our president, if we're being honest? Like, without going down that path, Joe Biden wasn't our president. He wasn't capable of making decisions. He didn't have the cognitive capability, in my opinion, to do simple things that we would be worried about our grandparents living by themselves doing. Like, to me, he was on that level. Nobody called him out. People didn't call. It took them putting him in an embarrassing situation. An embarrassing situation to have a debate. Somebody that you know is in no mental capacity, mind state to have a debate, and go up there, have a debate, and just completely embarrass himself. It took that for people to say, okay, we got to say something now. Donald Trump, let's remind ourselves, Donald Trump is in what, month 6, 7 of his election? And Tucker Carlson's been calling him out for 2 to 3 months on certain things. Candace Owens has been calling him out on Joe Rogan's been calling him out. We saw Elon Musk calling him out. All of these people that we used to look at and criticize them for doing the very same things that Democrats would do, right? Oh, they just will go along with anything that Trump says. That's proven incorrect. You were wrong about that. Matter of fact, the only people that Trump, the majority of people that Trump that is aligned with now are people that couldn't stand him 8 years ago. People that said that they would never vote for him. That's who he's aligned with now, the Ben Shapiros of the world. A lot of these other people that are now like some of his closest advisors who couldn't stand him before. Meanwhile, he's turned off a lot of it. Theo Von's calling him out. Because they were never following. I had this conversation the other night where, see, a lot of people, they like to, I think it was because like insulting the intelligence of a lot of people that were going for Donald Trump and voting for Donald Trump. So they would say, oh, they just listen to whatever Donald Trump says. It's these MAGA people. They're not college educated. They don't. I think it's been proven that those people know they weren't just following Trump to follow Trump like most of us just follow our favorite celebrity or our favorite politician. No matter what they do, we won't call out the bad behavior that they, nothing. They were following principles. Principles of a particular conservative way of life, not embracing victimhood, not allowing just a bunch of migrants to come in here, opening up the borders, putting America first, not spending all this money on non-American citizens and prioritizing their needs and our tax dollars paying for them to not only come over here, but to support them when they get over here. Our tax dollars not going towards Ukraine, Israel, and fighting all these other wars that we have no business necessarily getting involved in, but we're only doing it because we want to feed our military industrial system. When it comes to the principles of not embracing all these woke ideologies, boys playing sports against all this craziness where you're taking a parent out of the decision-making process when it comes to your kid's gender in California. All of these things, they thought that Donald Trump was the person that could actually bring and deliver their principles. How do I know? Is because I was one of them. And y'all have seen me call out Donald Trump. I was pushing, we have to embrace being able to call out certain things. And also on the other side, what Vons is doing, willing to acknowledge certain aspects of which people that we dislike saying certain things that we agree on. We got to be willing to do that. IROC wrote, I agree 100. I want to see everyone win. It's hard when there's so much toxicity out there. It's hard. It's hard with all the propaganda, all the toxicity. The reality of life is you always come for your own first. Perhaps. And so let me bring up Unk's. So Unk, let's say that what you're saying is true. You always come for your own first. That is exactly why the only solution to any of this is seeing everybody as our own. That's what we started off the show talking about. That's what godliness is. It's seeing our connection with each other. We're all God's children, right? Okay, so that means we're all a part of our own. Now, are we going to lean into the people that are closer to us in relation to other people? Perhaps. But are we going to do it even more now when we can use religion to justify going to war with somebody? Now we can use somebody's race, somebody's ethnicity. We can use all these different things to justify hating each other. Think about it. We go to war with each other over the things that are probably the least controllable in our lives. Now, what am I talking about? Obviously, we don't control what race we're born in, or what color skin we have. We don't control what race we are, because we don't control where we're born. Our parents can control that, but we don't control it. We don't control our religion in a lot of ways. Now, people can say, what do you mean you don't control your religion? You get to pick and choose what your religion is. Well, look at all the religions. You're Jewish if your mother's Jewish, right? So that's passed down to you, right? Look at the majority of Christians in America. We don't go through some application process to where we have to, hey, I'm applying to be Christian. You don't have to go through any rites of passage. Most of the people just accept it. Why? Because their parents are Christian. So, I'm going to be Christian. So the things that we actually don't choose are the things that we will go to war with over people the most. It's just an interesting thing. All right, real quickly, I got a little bit more from Jason Whitlock. Something funny before. All right, so we got something funny for y'all before we get into something obviously more serious. All right, let me play this for you. Let me play the whole thing for you. All right, this is a little lighter, yo. Make sure y'all are liking and subscribing as well. Something a little lighter. So with the WNBA, I'm sure a lot of y'all are aware of, or maybe you're not aware of, but they've been pushing to get paid more, to get paid what they deserve. They've been really at the forefront of women's rights. And it's hard to say they've been at the forefront of women's rights because at the same time they're at the whatever. I'm not going to get into that. I was going to get into the whole you pushing trans. How is that pushing opportunities for women? Neither here nor there. Let's take a look at this video.
Asia Wilson and other angry feminists.
And hold on. Before we get into this, let me see what Steve wrote. Many Democrat leaders over the past 20 years took the same hard line on government spending and border security, and only when Trump actually does it do Dems complain. That's an interesting point. Yeah, Steve, to the point that, real quick, a great point, because what did we say before? Like, even with Trump is not even I don't even see him as a Republican. I had to, even the conversation I had the other day, I'm like, yo, I don't see Donald Trump as a Republican. Like, he ran with the Republican Party, but I don't see him as a Republican. For one, he's going back and forth between Democrats and Republicans, as far as being in the actual parties. He's literally been a Democrat, he's been a Republican, he's bounced back and forth. And a lot of the same policies that Donald Trump is pushing for, let's be honest, these are traditionally aligned with a lot of Democrats in the past. I brought up videos. What did Donald Trump run his entire first campaign on? Build the wall. I brought up plenty of videos with Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, all of them calling to build a wall to prevent illegal immigration. Literally, they may have called it a fence or whatever. They were pushing to have a wall built. What was one of the biggest things of this campaign? The tariffs, right? The tariffs with the jobs and us exporting all of our jobs to China for cheaper labor. We've seen Nancy Pelosi and Bernie Sanders 20, 30 years ago call that stuff out and be in total alignment with Trump. We got to be able to follow policies. What is Trump? Trump was the one pushing, the only person that was saying we got to stop the wars. Now, people could say, he dropped the bomb on Iran. That's why I called him out on dropping the bomb on Iran. But when Trump was running, Trump was the person that, when it came to these wars and stuff around the world, he was the only one saying, yeah, we got to stop this. Hey, I'm more business rather than war. He was saying that. Now he's doing something different now. I'm being totally honest. But as far as him pushing that, the Democrats were the ones that never asked Israel and Palestine for a ceasefire. So when you actually look at the things that he's doing and you separate the person from it, I don't see him as a traditional neocon Republican type of guy. Yeah, I don't know. But let's get into this video. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Brought to you by George Soros, Adam Silver, Kathy Engelbert, and the Global Elite.
Steve, I don't know if you saw this, but something absolutely unbelievable happened in the WNBA yesterday. I think this is a 2-minute excerpt from, I think it's the Washington Mystics and the Phoenix Mercury. Let's play the clip.
And it bounced around a lot, but at the end, It went through the rim. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. She's gonna go head to the back. Oh no.
And a timeout called.
Y'all peep what happened?
For Copper to deal with the malfunction.
They're gonna play it again. Hold on.
And now they have an issue with a fan as the officials.
All right, so real quick, Shorty's wig came off her head, and she ran off the court, and they stopped the game because her wig came off. And then listen to what's about to happen with a fan. Listen.
As Phoenix's bench had an issue, they're having Alyssa Thomas and Nate Tibbetts point out which fan it is so that security here at Care First Arena can have that dealt with. As we're waiting to get back to play here. So the officials are now talking to arena security here. As you can see,
players are saying that they made fun of her for the situation that happened on the court. A fan made fun of somebody's wig falling off, and the players are getting them kicked out of the game.
Is my mic on? Can I?
So a fan said something. The Phoenix Mercury bench heard it, and they did not like what was said. They're taking exception to it. So Amy Bonner, crew chief, is trying to have this sorted out with the arena security here as to which person it was, and that way they can get it taken care of.
So Kalia Cop.
I just wanted to show y'all that. I don't really have too much. I just wanted to break up the seriousness before we get into this Tucker interview. That's not funny. Y'all didn't think that was funny? They stopped the WNBA. First off, you got to have a little bit of some tougher skin than that. You kicking a fan out the game for making fun of somebody's wig coming off. We got to have a little bit tougher skin than that. But I don't know. I thought it was funny. Maybe y'all didn't think it was funny. Let's get into this interview. All right, we're obviously not going to finish this entire interview. I would find that impossible unless we're on here until 11. But I'll leave it open. I got to be honest. Sometimes, and I see all y'all comments, but with a lot of this stuff when it comes to Israel and Palestine, I do believe that we have to speak on it. You know what? Never mind. Let's get into it. Because you know what ends up happening? It's like you almost feel like you're bullying in particular. Like I almost feel like, I'm only calling out the negative stuff with Israel. Well, that's just what I'm seeing. That's who's being harmed the most. Like I don't need to speak up necessarily for Israel right now because they're so dominant right now in what they're doing. It's so devastating to the Palestinian population. It shouldn't be. What did I told y'all before? Coach Caldwell, the first thing that he mentioned in the first meeting that we had with him, I'm gonna be fair, but I won't treat y'all equal. I'll treat you fairly, but not equally. There cannot be equal outrage right now to Palestinians and to Israelis. There can't be equal outrage. Let me rephrase that from me. if you're looking at the situation fairly. We just can't. Maybe this goes back to the whole Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, right? It goes back to that example that we always discuss, where if everybody's sitting at a dinner table and everybody's eating, except, you got the mom, you got the dad, you got the little brother, you got the big sister, but maybe you got that middle child, and the middle child, nobody's feeding the middle child. Nobody's feeding the middle child. And the middle child raised their hand and says, hey, I want to eat. And everybody else says, everybody should eat. Well, yeah, that's the whole point. Everybody's eating, but I'm not, I'm the one suffering. I'm the only one that's not eating. So therefore, I didn't say everybody should eat. I said, hey, I want to eat. Based on the premise that because everybody should eat, I'm identifying the issue that's preventing everybody from eating, which is me not eating. Now, regardless of where you are, y'all know I can't stand Black Lives Matter as an organization, whatever. The point that I'm trying to make is that we're calling out Israel because it's so devastating and it's become demonic what is happening and what's being done to a lot of these Palestinians. I don't know about the whole ends justifying the means. Maybe I can understand that in other scenarios, but at this point, I can't see that. Let's just get to the video.
Mr. Aguilar, thank you so much for joining us. Before I ask you any questions, I want to read what I think is your biography or parts of it, because I want the audience to understand who you are. And so I'm going to read this and you tell me if I've gotten anything wrong. So you're a retired lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. You went to West Point. You got your commission in the Army straight out of West Point. You served for 25 years in the U.S. Army as a combat infantry officer and a special forces, a Green Beret officer. You were deployed 12 times to Iraq 3 times, Afghanistan 3 times. You were deployed to Syria, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Jordan, the Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. You saw combat in many of those venues. You're highly decorated. You were wounded in combat, received a Purple Heart. You got a Bronze Star for Valor in combat, an Army Commendation Medal for Valor in combat. And then earlier this year, you found yourself working in Gaza under GHF, and I'll ask you to explain what that is in a moment. You were in Gaza from the 17th of May this year, 2025, through June 26th, 2025, which was last month. Is all of that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And the reason that I wanted to establish that before you tell the story that you're going to tell us is because very, very few Americans have been in Gaza in the last couple of years. And I don't know any others who have the experience in chaotic situations and combat situations that you have who've been there. And I think that really matters. Anyone who's been around combat knows it's enormously confusing, and having 25 years of experience around violence, I think gives you greater credibility because it suggests you can interpret what's happening accurately in a way that people who haven't had that experience probably can't. So with that, I want to ask you the first and most obvious question: what is GHF in Gaza?
So
Unc's hilarious. He said, "Why are the subtitles in Russian?" I didn't even know that they were. Yo, good call.
Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was established to take over the aid distribution into Gaza, replacing the former United Nations aid delivery mechanism post blocking or cutting off of the Gaza enclave. So there was no aid going in up until May 26th when we started operations, and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was established to lead that effort overall. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, I'm not sure in terms of what their actual status is in terms of a company or an NGO or a nonprofit. I don't know what they're classified as, but I know that their GHF is the overall lead for both of the contract mechanisms in Gaza.
So after 25 years as a U.S. Army officer, West Point graduate, Special Forces officer, all these combat deployments, all the decorations that you received, how did you wind up distributing aid in Gaza?
Well, sir, on May 13th, I received a phone call from the UG Solutions. UG Solutions is a subcontract for the security portion of this aid distribution method. They're stationed here in Davidson, North Carolina, where I live. I retired out of Fort Bragg, and they contacted me basically looking for experienced, recently retired or recently gotten out of the military, experienced combat veterans, special forces operations background. So they contacted me and explained the mission to me. Up until that point, till I got that phone call, I was not aware of what UG Solutions or the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was. So I was interested, and I listened to what they had to say.
The reason I'm asking you this is I know that after this interview airs, there will be a concerted attempt to discredit you as a man. And I'm certain, having seen this happen many times, that one of the criticisms we levy against you is that you were some sort of political activist with a political axe to grind or an ideological axe to grind. Are you? Because it sounds like from the story you're telling now that you were a retired Army officer who received a call because of your combat experience. Is that correct?
Prior to that phone call on the 13th of May, sir, and remind you, I did retire on the 1st of January. I didn't retire years ago. Retirement through the 1st of January, and my last day in the Army was 1 March. I was very happy and content. My wife also served a career in the military. She is a retired career military officer. Between the two of us, we have 45 years of service. Between her and I, with my son, we've missed almost every birthday, every anniversary, every Christmas from the time that he was born to the majority of our marriage. And we're still married 17 years later. So I was very much comfortable and established in my retirement lifestyle. No political aspirations, no aspirations to go into another line of work. I'm starting school in the fall. That was my aspiration. I enjoyed making breakfast for my family, taking my son to school every morning, Boy Scout meetings, PTO meetings, watching the Golden Girls in the afternoon with a cup of tea, walking the dog. That was my life, and I was very content. When I got the phone call, I felt that initially, because I didn't know much about the situation, when they first called me, I said, hey, I'd like to take a day to kind of do my own research and just kind of understand what it's all about. My answer is not no, but my answer is not yes. So I took the day, I took the rest of the day, I believe it was a Wednesday, and I went through I started to read about GHF, not a lot out there. I started to read about Safe Reach Solutions, which is the prime contract, not a lot out there. I read a little bit about UG Solutions. UG Solutions had been the contract that sent contractors into Gaza in late January through March to control the Netzarim checkpoint once the ceasefire broke, or the ceasefire started, I should say, for the Palestinians that were allowed to then go back into Gaza City. So they had some credibility. It seemed like not many people had done contracts in Gaza. UGS did. So I figured that this would be an opportunity to link up with a company that had the experience. But I was more interested in the mission. I say this again, and I've said it again, I don't know Johnny Moore, the director or CEO or whatever the title is of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. But there is something that he said that I do agree with, that there's nothing more Christian than feeding people.
Yes.
And in terms of the sentiment of doing goodwill, feeding starving people, I served for the majority of my career after being an infantry officer and going to Special Forces. The Special Forces motto, as you see in the picture behind me of 1st Special Forces Group, is De Oppresso Liber, to free the oppressed. That is our motto. I just didn't have that on my uniform. I lived that. The civilian population in Gaza, politics aside, political views, religious positions aside, they are being oppressed. Food, water, education, life, dignity. And I wanted to be a part of going in to help in some way. So I have no political aspirations. I have no political leanings. I have no desire to write a book or before doing these interviews, I don't even have social media, and I've never really been out onto the internet. This is all very overwhelming for me. But my wife was a big factor behind me going on the record. My wife being, again, a retired military officer, we understand a lot of the same values. And she explained to me, she said, no one else can tell this story. No one else was there. Not only were you there, you were on the sites, and no one else saw it through the eyes of your experience. In the places you've been, in the places and the things that you've done, the lens you look at this through is different than most people have. You need to go on the record. The American people need to know this. My motivations in this are patriotic. I want to inform the American people, my fellow citizens, of what's going on in Gaza, what our taxpayers' dollars are funding, and what American citizens on the ground are being faced with. America needs to know.
So tell us what you saw, and I'm grateful to your wife for her encouragement on that. I think she's absolutely right. The United States is paying for this, and there is almost no information coming out of Gaza. The news media, of course, are barred. It's been going on for more than a couple of years now. It'll be 3 years in October, and the sense is that there's something profound going on, but of course there's no way to know what's going on. So what did you see when you arrived? What were your perceptions of Gaza?
So my initial perceptions of Gaza, just in terms of the physical aspect, is that I would just describe it as post-apocalyptic, something from, the akin to Terminator 2, when the T-100s are walking through the destroyed landscape. It's human depravity. It's the oppression of dignity. It's the entire area, like for example, in the south in Rafah. I saw pictures of Rafah prior to the current war, and there were nice buildings, there were beach resorts, there were street lights and neighborhoods, and now it is leveled to the ground. There is not a building that stands, and the rubble is piled up. And as you drive through Rafah to one of our points, secure distribution site number 3 was in Rafah, so we would have to drive through the old southern Rafah corridor to get there, and all of the homes just in piles and rubble, and you can see someone's couch that's hanging from a piece of rebar out of the second floor of a building, or a refrigerator smashed, or family photos that were on the wall that are now shattered and broken. Like, these lives were just destroyed and taken, and that's the scene of Gaza. As on the news, airdrops were conducted over the last 48 hours, and journalists were prohibited or encouraged not to take video or pictures of the overhead scenery, because if the world sees that, I think the world would step back and pause to say, what are we doing?
And I want to stop. Let me make sure I'm not muted. I'm thinking about the Civil War, not the Civil War, civil rights. I'm thinking about the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King. And I always heard, and I'm not even sure to what extent this is true, but with things being televised more. When did TVs come out? I'm sorry, hold on. But I'll look that up on the back end. But when things were getting televised more, and the rest of the world was starting to actually see maybe dogs attacking certain people and certain things that occurred in the civil rights movement, that's what created the pressure for America to act on what a lot of people, a lot of the civil rights activists were pushing for. It was the pressure that was created by the rest of the world and the rest of the country getting visuals on some of the things that Black people were going through. This is the same situation. This is why you would not want cameras in or journalists in. And I want to be very careful, because apparently I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I was hearing somebody say that, well, journalists are never invited into active war zones. I don't know to what extent that's true. I don't know. But clearly, when you have certain people come in, and certain people that are already here, like him, who's a Green Beret serving, and they're encouraged to not take pictures, it's for a reason. People want to hide what they're doing. People can sit here and say, oh, it's war, stuff happens like that in war. We know that a lot of war is a propaganda battle. who can put out certain things and certain images and certain videos that are going to get the rest of the world to align with them, or to excuse, let's say, demonic behavior, and for us to sit back and say, oh, well, this is why what Steve was saying earlier, why they have to convince us that whoever they're committing these acts against, they have to convince us that they're inhumane, that they're animals, that they're subhuman, for us to justify doing certain things. Put yourself in this position. If an animal was attacking you, how would you respond? You would do anything to kill that animal, right? So that's what they're trying to create. Let's keep going.
What have we become?
You've spent your life in combat zones. That's why I think your testimony is so compelling, because you have a frame of reference. You've seen a lot of destruction and a lot of killing in your life for 25 years. How would you compare what you saw in Gaza to what you've seen in, say, Afghanistan or Iraq?
Nothing compares. Nothing I have seen in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Baghdad, in Mosul, Sadr City, all throughout Afghanistan, Syria, the southern Philippines, some places where there's dense populations. I have never witnessed anything as brutal, destructive, violent, and I would say that steps far over our international laws of how we persecute wars and how we engage in warfare. We've long departed from that standard, and America's a part of it.
How is it obvious that America's a part of it? I know that we know academically the United States is paying for this and has always paid for it. But do you see American weapons? Do you see American military personnel? I mean, how enmeshed in this are we?
So the 314 government contractors under UG Solutions, the majority, not all of them, but in the high 80 percentile, are combat veterans from the military, directly from the military, combat veterans like myself. You have a mix of law enforcement. You have a mix of people that had experience in various security backgrounds. Within that military portion, there's a good portion of them that are special operations, Marine Corps, Navy SEALs, Green Berets. So all of the contractors on the ground are Americans. And the interesting part of that is that when we first entered Israel, I kind of had to take a pause, and I was like, are you kidding? Like we were and are in Israel, armed with fully automatic weapons and pistols and shotguns and stun grenades and machine guns, going into Gaza on a tourist visa. We are there on a tourist visa. So if my grandmother wanted to go visit Jerusalem, she would be in Israel under the same status that I was.
Why is that?
And I just looked up on ChatGPT as far as with the journalist. So based on what I'm seeing here is that it is common for journalists to be allowed into war zones due to circumstances. The circumstances and restrictions can vary depending on the conflict, the country, and the government involved. The role of journalists in war zones is to report and provide accurate, unbiased coverage of the events, which is essential for informing the global public. However, there are several factors that could influence whether journalists are allowed access to these key areas. Some of these factors are access restrictions, censorship and control. It says some countries like Israel during the ongoing conflict with Palestinian groups have occasionally imposed censorship or limited access to journalists, especially during intense military operations. This is done under the pretext of national security concerns or to prevent certain narratives from being amplified. ChatGPT is funny. This is done under the pretext of national security concerns, which they're saying like, okay, or to prevent certain narratives from being amplified. That's what he's discussing. The safety concerns, international. Now, the safety concerns of the journalists is interesting because Israel has been accused of killing a bunch of journalists. So I don't know to what extent that holds weight, but yeah, clearly in a situation like this, it would be vital for people to be able to go in and see what's going on, because whose words are we supposed to take? I hear a bunch of people saying those are Hamas numbers. You can't believe those numbers. Those are terrorist numbers, or those are Hamas reports, Hamas journals, Hamas articles. Well, when you don't allow any journalist unbiased journalists to go in there, who are we supposed to believe? Just the Israeli journalist? You see what I'm saying? Like, that's the whole point of having unbiased journalists observe what's going on in the situation. But neither here nor there.
At first, I didn't understand it, but then I went and I did some research as to why didn't we do a B1 entry visa as subject matter experts invited by the government or under a different authority? There's various entry visa options. And it dawned on me that, oh, well, if you want to submit for a form of B1 or a different form of the B2 under a work visa, one, that's expensive. And two, that takes time. You have to coordinate that ahead of time. And this mission was thrown together, and there's no one within SRS or UG Solutions that will push back against this, because we all know it. It was thrown together very hastily, and it was just kind of a mix of throwing so many parts together, trying to get it all to come together, that I think things were done to be fast and loose, as I would call it. And one of those was, hey, go online, fill out your Israeli visa, get your e-visa, tourist visa, $25, and come on over to Israel.
You said all of the contractors are American. The Israeli military, the IDF, leveled Gaza. Are there any Israelis helping to feed or take care of, sustain the life of the Palestinians, or is it all Americans who are helping?
So this is what was another aspect that was both interesting and concerning to me, that and I raised this issue early on because, you know, when I use the term war crimes, people think that, oh, you're just exaggerating. Well, I'm well versed in the protocols of the Geneva Convention, the protocols of the laws of armed conflict, the protocols of international humanitarian law, because I had to know those things as an officer leading men in combat. I didn't have the option. Ignorance was not an option. So
right.
Some of the things now I don't have it, memorized, but there's some pretty key elements in it that kind of stand out. Like I don't know every word to the Constitution, but I can recite the preamble. So I know what some of them are in terms of what the don'ts are. One thing that struck me as concerning is that there are only 4 secure distribution sites in Gaza under the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. 4. Prior to the blockade and prior to the stopping of UN aid going in, there were 400. So out of the 4 sites that we have, only 4, 3 of them are co-located within 150 to 200 meters from each other, all of them in the far southwest corner of the enclave near the Egyptian border. It's nowhere near the people that need it. North of the Netzarim corridor, which bisects central Gaza from the north. In the north, you have Gaza City and Jabalia. That is where the population right now is the most vulnerable, where you have death, starvation. They're isolated. No aid is going into there, and there's no aid sites there. So prior to us deploying, as a
and something that I want to point out is, it's funny because you hear a lot of, on the Israeli side, even I think Trump split with Benjamin Netanyahu on this, which is on the Israeli side, a lot of their leaders are saying that there is no starvation. Nobody's being starved. But then even Trump, matter of fact, came out and said, yeah, there's issues of starvation. There is starvation, and we need to play a role in that. So there's a lot of powers at play here. There's a lot of stuff that's going on at play here. But as I'm listening to this interview again, it can go by a little slow. But I don't know if it's for you guys, but especially in the beginning, it's very important for us to validate his credentials, because think about it, with a lot of these situations, and we hear these stories, this person saying this person saying that. This is a Green Beret with a Purple Heart that has fought, sacrificed, risked his life, got injured for our country, who's now going over there and telling us that he's never seen the things that he's seeing happen in Palestine or in Gaza. that he's seen in his previous 25 years of combat experience, or however many years, you know, he was actually in combat, but army experience, military experience. It's damn.
Prudent military planner mindset. You know, I'm not in the army anymore, but I didn't, you know, I still carry the skills. I did a little bit what I would call operational preparation of the environment. I did my research, looked at Gaza, figured out the population, where the population centers were, what people ate, where they primarily lived and what they did. And I saw that, okay, well, the entire northern enclave of Gaza is cut off and isolated, and none of the sites that we've put in are in that area. So who are we providing aid to? So the 3 sites out of the 4 that are all the way down in the southern tip of the enclave, all of them are co-located or nearly located with an IDF combat unit. In that area is where the IDF is actively conducting, and this is not an opinion that anybody can refute. This is a fact. You can look it up. The IDF is currently conducting Operation Gideon's Chariots. It's an offensive operation. It's not a defensive. It's not a security. It's not an aid operation. It is an offensive combat operation, and they are conducting that in the south, where all 3 out of the 3 or 4 sites are located. We established secure distribution sites to deliver and distribute humanitarian aid, not only co-located with Israeli combat units, but located in an active combat zone. I can't make it clearer to the leadership there and to the lawyers that I've spoke with at GHF and UG Solutions that is a war crime, verbatim, out of the protocols of the Geneva Convention, which last time I checked, the United States was still a signatory to, and the laws of international laws and international humanitarian law. Clearly, there's no question about it. So to say that, well, it's okay in this one instance, it's not. It's not okay. So just from immediately being there, I realized that the planning and the coordination for this operation had either been done by people that had no idea, no concept of planning at that level to take into all the considerations that you have to take into an environment like this. You can't just go into a mission like this and say, oh, we'll just wing it. You have to consider the legal, the political, the environmental, the cultural, the military aspects. You have to consider every aspect when you go into planning something like this. And it was obvious that had not been done. So
let me ask y'all a question, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who, and we have to always remind ourselves that when you're actually involved in the situation, in the war, obviously it can be a lot different than, you know, us. We're sitting on the outskirts, you know, we're fans in the stadium just looking at what's happening and observing. Obviously, people who are engaged in the situation are going to be the most extreme radicalized. But perhaps Israel, let me ask y'all this. Perhaps Israel's right. Hold on. Let me, I'm not running from y'all. Perhaps Israel's right. Perhaps war, this is what war is. Doesn't matter the amount of civilians. Let me hold on. Let me show y'all something. Perhaps Israel's right. I want to show y'all something.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
Well, let me just say that, speaking diplomatically, the world is a mess. I have been to those places, believe me. I have seen people that are dirt poor that then spend money on things that are not healthy. But it is exactly, I think, that out of that difficulty and challenge, it's a huge opportunity. Companies that have the capability of delivering a message that says you can help yourself.
You know, is the price worth it?
I like the idea of an American product being helpful to people in other parts of the world. I've studied democracy my whole life. They say, well, let's kind of just worry about ourselves and not worry about everybody else.
That's the wrong video. Hold on. Sorry about that.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Let me run that back again since I played it wrong the first time. My apologies. Listen to this.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
So, who is this person, right? Who is this person? This is Madeleine Albright. So we've spoken about her before, and we've actually looked at this clip a while ago, but I think it's just relative to what we're discussing right now. When we think about how radical and extreme and how demonic, you know, when we see what's going on with Israel and Palestine, how far it's gone. This is Madeleine Albright, who was the U.S. Secretary of State under Bill Clinton, President Clinton. She made the controversial statement that the price is worth it regarding the deaths of 500,000 Iraqi children as a result of the U.S.-led sanctions against Iraq in the 1990s, specifically over the Gulf War and during the ongoing sanctions that followed. Let me ask y'all. I'm gonna pull this up for you guys to read along, if that's cool with you guys. I want you guys to see what I'm looking at. All right, can you guys see that? Yes, you can. All right, let me give me a second. Give me a second. All right, so check this out. So Madeleine Albright, who was, I don't want to keep it full screen because I want to make sure that y'all can see. All right. So Madeleine Albright, who was a U.S. Secretary of State, we already went over that. So this is a 1996 interview. The sanctions were imposed after Iraq's invasion of Kuwait in 1990 and remained in place for years afterward with the goal of pressuring Saddam Hussein's regime to comply with UN resolutions. The sanctions severely restricted Iraq's access to food, medicine, and other essential goods, leading to widespread suffering, particularly among children. Does that sound familiar? Albright's comment, "The price is worth it," was in response to the question about the devastating impact the sanctions had on Iraqi civilians, particularly children. This remark sparked outrage and criticism, as many saw it as callous and dismissive of the human suffering caused by the sanctions. What if Israel's right? We should go to whatever extents necessary to rid this threat that we have of Hamas. It doesn't matter if we kill thousands of Palestinians. Doesn't matter if we kill women and children. That's just the price of war. War is brutal. What if that's the correct way of looking at it? Because the alternative way of looking at it, or what we see as the alternative way of looking at it, is not really the alternative way of looking at it. Real quickly, then I'm put that back up. We look at the alternative way of looking at Madeleine Albright and Israel being justified in doing and going to whatever extent necessary to rid the world of Hamas, no matter who they have to kill while doing so. We look at the alternative as, well, there's a way that we do war. You know, you can't violate war crimes. You can't commit these atrocities here. You can kill people, but you know, only a certain amount and done a certain way are civilian lives justified. You know, civilian deaths justified. It has to be done a certain way. How they're doing is, That's not the alternative. Or even if that is the alternative, that's not the alternative that's going to solve our problem. It's not realistic. The alternative, I feel like I can say, should be to just for us to say, we can't have wars. The alternative should be, this shows us that we just can't have wars. You can't half-ass wars. You can't, I mean, in my opinion, it's just not realistic. Even this Green Beret, he could sit here and say that, well, Israel, I've never seen anything like this done to this extent. And you know, I've been here. You know, yeah, there's certain one-offs here and there, but this leadership, perhaps this is showing us just why you can't have wars, why it can't be justified under any means. It can't be justified by any means. We can, once we start rationalizing war and why well, this is how we go about fighting a war. This is the proper way to kill somebody. It sounds crazy, right? So perhaps Israel is just not playing the BS games that a lot of other people play around the world. And they're just willing to go as to, it doesn't matter what lengths. We identify that other group as evil, so therefore we're willing to commit any amount of evil to rid the world of that evil because that's a threat to us. And we told ourselves never again. So we're never going to allow our people to go through a genocide, Holocaust, anything of the likes. We will strike first and strike hard and aggressively before we allow somebody to do something to us. Protecting my family is not allowing somebody to come into my home and negotiating with them about, hey, you know, please don't harm my family. Protecting my home is stopping that threat before it even walks in the door. Neutralizing that threat. Perhaps we're being unrealistic with ourselves. We sit here and act like it's more realistic to have a balance with war. Well, you know, we can do war, but you know, let's have the rest of the world, like, let's agree on how much we can, how many lives we can kill, to what extent, you know, how we have to go about doing it. Well, we can't starve people, but we can't do, we have to give people a heads up. Perhaps the right way to do it is to say, wait, maybe we just shouldn't have wars. Maybe if we just outlaw wars, then it'll force ourselves as humans, very capable beings, the most capable beings, I think a lot of us would acknowledge. Perhaps this would force us to just figure it out in a different way. It would be more justified if we said, you know what, we're going to all play a football game or a basketball game, or we play each country's top sport. There's a set of these sports where we're going to compete in. It'll be an Olympic type of setting, and this gets, I don't know, to resolve certain conflicts. Perhaps if you had to bring something to the table, you got a conflict between Israel and Palestine. All right, y'all bring it to the table. This is what, you know, we got a bunch of people agreeing on what you can compete in order to resolve that type of issue. But of course, I'm being a little bit silly while saying this, but is it really sillier than thinking that we can go to war and have rules within war about how to properly kill somebody? Which is sillier? It's not realistic. So when I listen to a Madeleine Albright and she's telling me that they believe that it was justified, or she believes that it was justified killing, what was it, 500,000 Iraqi children? For what? And that's the thing. What did we accomplish? Hold on. What did this war and killing 500,000 children actually accomplish? Let me look this up. let's see what it actually accomplished. The 1990 through 2003, you guys can see this, right? All right. The 1990 through 2003 sanctions on Iraq following the Gulf War had a profound and devastating impact on the Iraqi civilian population, especially on children, as highlighted by widely criticized statement that matter. Yeah, we went through that. What the sanctions were supposed to accomplish: disarmament. Disarmament. They threw another A in there. Disarmament of WMDs, weapons of mass destruction. The primary goal of the sanctions was to ensure that Iraq gave up its chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons program, which were seen as a threat to regional and global security. But wait, didn't they find there were no weapons of mass destruction? This was just another lie of Bibi Netanyahu. We already found that out. So what the sanctions were supposed to accomplish, these weapons of mass destructions, they weren't there. But Madeleine Albright saying that it's justified killing 500,000 children. Let's go to number 2. Regime change or compliance. The international community, led by the United States, hoped that the sanctions would weaken Saddam Hussein's regime enough to either force his compliance with UN resolutions or eventually lead to regime change. Why do you want regime change? And you know what? It's so funny. It seems like the United States always wants to get involved in regime change when they can't or can no longer control whoever it is that they put in power or helped empower previously. And why am I saying that they helped empower previously? Didn't we already find out? So real quick, then we're going to come back to number 3. Didn't the United States give Saddam Hussein and Iraq weapons before we went to war with them? I may be wrong. Yes, the United States, along with other Western nations, did provide support to Saddam Hussein and Iraq during the 1980s, specifically during the Iran-Iraq War. This support was largely motivated by geopolitical interest and the desire to counter the influence of Iran, particularly after the Iran Revolution in 1979, which led to the establishment of an Islamic theocracy under Ayatollah Khomeini. So we were given the Iraqis war. I mean, the Iraqis weapons during the Iraq-Iran war. We were supporting them. But I guess when now they're not fighting our battle anymore, we got to get rid of Saddam. Are we starting to see how the war, we just can't have wars. We just can't have wars. Let's go back to number 3, because that was number 2. What was where are we? Didn't we have numbers? All right, number 2. All right, here we go. Limiting Iraq's military capacity. The sanctions were intended to limit Iraq's ability to rearm and rebuild its military after the Gulf War, thereby preventing future aggression. So the first one never happened, right? Hold on. Wait, there were no weapons of mass destruction. Mass destruction. I'm wondering why you didn't point that out. Why you didn't point that out when you said that was the number 1 thing the sanctions were supposed to accomplish. Sorry, I don't type as fast as I used to. You heard? Look at Chachit. You're absolutely right to point out that no weapons of mass destruction were found in Iraq after the 2003 invasion. I should have emphasized that key factor earlier in my response, especially when discussing the goals of the sanctions and the ultimate outcome. This is why I'm not worried about artificial intelligence, because you still now here this person said that the goal, number 1 goal was weapons of mass destruction. But they didn't point out the fact that there were no weapons of mass destruction found. So Madeleine Albright, your number 1 goal right? Based on ChatGPT, they're saying the number one goal was to eliminate weapons of mass destruction, and there were no weapons of mass destruction. But this demonic lady is saying that it was justified killing 500,000 Iraqi children. This is insane. This is insane. And this is the war that we decided to get into after 9/11 that had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11. But I guess that's just how the game goes. Let me go back to this interview. Let's go back to this interview. Let me make sure I'm keeping up with y'all comments. Hold on. Steve wrote, after vetting, I would believe this soldier's point of view is factual over anything I hear or see on another news source, especially when forming an opinion. That's why I'm showing it. That's exactly why I'm showing it, big bro. Good old Madeleine Albright. I'll never forget this interview. We think the price was worth it. It's insane. And Bob Marley said total destruction is the only solution. Hey, Bob Marley, and I know my dad's laughing at it because he knows exactly what I'm about to say. Bob Marley said it, and the most intelligent person perhaps that I've ever met. I told y'all about my neighbor that I grew up with, Philip. When I asked him, hey, what's the solution to all this? We were talking about, wars and killing and racism and all this other stuff. What's the solution? He said, maybe God should flood the planet and start a new one. Or he said, maybe God should flood the planet again and create a new race of people, and maybe that's the solution. And he just walked away from me. He didn't even say maybe that's the solution. He just said maybe God should flood the planet and create a new race. And he just walked away from me. After I asked my neighbor, what's the answer to this? And Bob Marley said total destruction is the only solution. It's the only solution, and it's the only place where this is ultimately going to lead to. When you start pressing these buttons and stuff, it's like, well, they did this, so I did that. Well, he hit me, so I hit. It's the most childish thing. War is the most childish thing and the most animalistic behavior, aka the most ungodly behavior us as humans can exhibit. And the fact that we do it in the name of God is even more despicable. Unc said to me, nephew, that would be like killing a person because they took your parking spot on an open street just because it was convenient for you to walk into the building that you wanted to access at. That's a fact. That's a fact. So in other words, we'd be like dolphins killing all the other fish in the sea because they're mad at sharks. Yeah, there's no justification of a lot of this stuff. Under the same idea that we funded and taught the Taliban how to fight in Afghanistan when they were fighting the Russians. All of these different groups that we prop up, we empower, we teach them how to use the weapons that we're giving them. But when they're no longer listening to every little thing that we tell them, now we got to kill them. We identify them as a terrorist organization. So then we rationalize killing them because the majority of Americans have no idea about the stuff that we're discussing. The majority of Americans, even when you think about what's the number one cop-out that people will use to not talk about Israel and Palestine and not have an opinion? Well, I don't know what's going on. Do you have to know what's going on? Maybe if Madeleine Albright knows what's going on, perhaps people who don't know as much of what's going on should be the ones in determining what's the right thing to do. Let's keep going.
In my mind, I was like, this is either complete ignorance or it's intentional. They were intentionally put here. So I don't know the answer to that. Someday that's going to come out when the truth breaks and the international community looks and opens this box and starts digging into this nasty problem. The truth will come out. So it's my hope that we didn't do that intentionally, because that would not only make us war criminals, that would just make us evil. So, but the fact still remains, 3 of the 4 distribution sites are in an active combat zone. The 4th site up in central Gaza near the Netzarim corridor is co-located with an Israeli combat unit, a tank unit, mind you. A Merkava tank company is located adjacent to the distribution site. So if someone were to look through the annals of history and see how the United States government participated in the distribution of humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza, and they look at the maps and they're looking at everything, they're like, what was going on here? Why are you distributing humanitarian aid in the middle of a combat zone? It's a question that needs to be asked and needs to be answered, I think.
Do you have any sense of what the current population of Gaza is? which is another way of asking how many people have been killed? How many Palestinians have died in Gaza? Do we know?
Well, I don't think anyone has a firm number that we can all collectively trust. I know that the Gaza Health Ministry has a number. I mean, I haven't been able to validate or verify that, but I know that one thing I can tell you for a fact is that people have been killed. I've seen it. Like, it's a fact. People have been killed. What the current population is now, I know that prior to the blockade, kind of the last census for Gaza that was taken in, I believe, 2018, the population was declared to be around 2.2, 2.21 million. What it is now, I don't know, but I would assume that the population has been greatly decreased. What I do know about the population, outside of the demographics of the size, is that the majority, a far majority of the population, is completely isolated from the central southern portion of Gaza, and they're completely isolated in the south, or excuse me, in the north of the Netzarim corridor in Gaza City. So that would be if you took everybody in New York and crammed them to southern Manhattan and said that's the only place you can be out of all of New York City. It's a nightmare, and I don't know why. Well, to be fair, I do know why it's happening. I don't know why we're accepting it. I don't know why we're a part of it, because it's a war crime to do that. It is a war crime to intentionally displace the civilian population on the battlefield in combat operations. What is displacement? Well, moving people from where they live to a place that they don't and not letting them go back. It's in the fourth protocol of the Geneva Convention, and we just turn a blind eye to it.
All right, I want to take a little bit of a slight turn. We're probably going to have to pause there on that interview, but you guys are free to go and check out the rest of the interview. I recommend it, just to get some more insight and more perspective on what's going on, because a lot of times we don't know what's going on. We hear this propaganda on this side, we hear that propaganda on this side. We don't know how to decipher between what's real, what's not. But our eyes, we like to say that our eyes don't lie, or that our eyes are not lying to us. You can't convince me that I'm not seeing certain things that I'm seeing, but we just don't know to what extent it's happening. But when you have a gentleman like this who comes on, gives his insight, has the credibility, has no there's nothing that he would gain, I would assume, from. I mean, there's always things to look at what you could gain, but as far as what he's risking and coming out, I don't think that the risk, I don't think the gains outweigh the risk. So definitely commend this gentleman for being willing to speak on a lot of this stuff. I want to pivot to the last thing that we were going to discuss, which is that active shooter situation, well, the shooter in Manhattan. And I want to bring about just a certain part of it that was discussed. And maybe you guys caught this, maybe you guys didn't, maybe you guys don't care, you guys tell me. But this was something that was interesting to me. Take a look at how they describe the shooter. And let's have a conversation around it. Let's get into it. Now, keep in mind, this is CNN.
Join you here. John's reporting that they do know what he looks like. Male, possibly white, mustache, sunglasses, in that building, isolated to, they believe, to various locations, including upper floors.
Male, possibly white. Now, I'm sure you all have seen the shooter by now. Pictures of him. Let me pull up a picture, just so you guys can see who this possibly white shooter is. All right, let me, I wish it wasn't on Instagram. All right, whatever, we'll share this. You guys will be able to see it, it's all good. It's an Instagram clip, but whatever. Share this tab instead, you guys can see. All right, so this is the person. Now, how he could have been seen as possibly white, I don't know. Maybe let's take a look at what's this Aaron Burnett. Wait, no, Aaron Burnett is obviously not the person. Do they have his name yet Hold on. I want to show y'all some other pictures. Possibly white shooter. This is the picture. Now this. This is the picture right here. So I don't know if, I mean, you guys tell me, does that look like a white person? Does this look like a white person to y'all? I guess based on I was about to make a Jesus joke. Let me stop, man. Come on, y'all stop playing with me. I was about to make it. The point that I'm trying to make is everything is racialized. And think about the video that we just watched the other day. Yeah, I remember the video that we were watching and we were going through the Grok conversation where the lady on X, where there was the video of the white couple that was getting beat up by a bunch of mostly, I think, black people. And the lady was asking Grok, the artificial intelligence for X, why is this not getting national attention? And Grok, the artificial intelligence, was saying that white on black issues are publicized more and shown on more mainstream platforms because why? It gets people emotional, it gets people outraged, it pisses people off, right? I guess in ways that the other won't piss people off. Now, I don't know. That actually tells us a lot, and I don't want to get into, what it tells us on either side. Yeah, but the point is, why would she say that this is a possibly white shooter? For one, if she saw the video, and for two, who could have given her that information? What is she trying to portray? If you don't know what color shooter there is, then there's no need to even say it. But the whole possibly white, there's a reason for it. One, the reason is for it because we all want to know, right? As soon as one of these major shootings happens, let's be honest. Let's be honest. What do a lot of us do? I know in the black community, we do it. Yo, was it black? Was it white? And it's almost like a relief when it's not a black person. It's like, oh, all right. But it's like, yo, they were black? It's a black dude? That's the response, if we're just being honest. I don't know what it is to other people. I don't know what it is. I'm just saying. I can't say that my response or the people around me are the responses for the entire black community, but that's what we do. When it's a shooting, we're kind of expecting it to be. So now you have CNN journalists that are reporting something in an inconsistent way, in my opinion. But we always have to ask yourself, why are they trying to do this? When we've talked about for months, like, yo, it seems like they're trying to create this race war. It seems like they're always trying to racialize everything. Everything is seen through this critical race theory lens where we see race first. What is the point of all this? So this was me just pointing that out. I wasn't sure if you guys saw that video, but it's just, I don't know, because it's funny as we used to look at it the other way, where it's like, oh, they just assume that it's a black male, like, hey, young black male, they just committed. But it's like now they're flipping it and everything is just to try to make, I don't know whether it's an attack on white men. I don't know if it should just get black people upset and get whatever other group of people upset and at war with white people. I don't know what it is. Obviously, we know that CNN is more of a liberal station. So them being a liberal station, what did the artificial intelligence say? A lot of these liberal stations, they're more likely to highlight the white on black crimes rather than the black on white crimes, or rather than just black people committing crimes. Because there's a certain agenda, there's a certain narrative. And when we can remove race from all these conversations and not feel one way or another based on whether the shooter was black, whether the shooter's white, whether these are Israelis committing this act or this is the Palestinians committing this act, when we can remove that stuff, that's the only way that we're ever going to get to a space where hopefully we can see more of that oneness that we were talking about earlier. See each other as, God's children. That's my brother. That's my, not by our religious identities, not by our gender identities, not by our sexual orientation identities, not by our skin color identities, all this other stuff. Once again, the stuff that we control the least, we tend to fight over the most. So, yeah. Steve said, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. That's a fact. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. He looked more Arab to me. Yeah, the guy looked more Arab to me. Black Arab. I don't know. I saw some younger pictures of him. Either way, he just didn't look white. He just didn't look white. But let's do I have anything else to wrap up today? Yeah, let me, because I was supposed to start the show off with this. Let's finish it off with this. The importance of confidence. The importance of confidence. Give you guys something to carry you off into the rest of your Friday with. Let me pull this up. Share this tab instead. Paul Pierce. Yo, Paul Pierce is becoming one of my favorite, I don't know what you want to call it, creators, whatever you say. Paul Pierce is becoming one of my favorites, man. All right, listen to Paul Pierce's advice.
Is a game. When they say life is a game, like you could be a great player, but you could still lose your confidence.
Exactly.
And you can have your ebb and flow.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
you get your confidence back, you on top of the world. You know, it don't matter what nobody say about you, man. And like me, I've been one of the most scrutinized players, like when I play, and even after the play, some of the stuff I play, but they don't know what my true strength was. My best strength was my confidence. There's nobody, nothing can tell me.
Yeah.
And when you gain that, and you just start developing Teflon skin, to no matter what people say about you, it don't even bother, it don't even move you.
Yeah.
That's when you're gonna be able to advance in anything you're trying to do. And that's the message I want to put out. Like, people say, "Oh, you delusional." People are gonna say, "Oh, you not this, you not that." Look where it got me, being delusional.
Exactly.
Look where it got,
100%.
Like it got me to places I never thought as a kid coming out of Inglewood to be able to travel the world. Like, from being delusional, because I didn't believe what people said, because I didn't believe like anything you said I couldn't do.
Exactly.
You know what I'm
100%.
saying?
That's
So,
what you have to do.
life is a game. When they say life is
We've talked about it before. A healthy level of delusion is good. And when we are in a space when we're looking to accomplish and actively seeking things that a lot of other people close to us in our bubble, in our community, have not and are not trying to accomplish, then what do they naturally do? They start to put that energy on you, right? You ever had somebody project their limitations on you? Where it's like, hey, I'm trying to do this. I had a buddy of mine, I was talking to him. He was saying, you know, how much he's looking to make on a monthly basis with his coaching. And somebody responded and said, "Oh, I don't think you can make that." And it's just like, a lot of times people respond in a way, and even if it's our family looking out for ourselves, respond in a way because they just don't have enough information, one. And a lot of times they're looking to protect us, to protect our dreams, protect us from being too delusional, to waste our time doing something that's never going to give us the return that we're expecting. A lot of times it can come from a bunch of different places, but it doesn't even matter where it comes from. The only thing that matters is how we see ourselves, the confidence that we carry with the things that we want to accomplish in this life. Somebody says that you can't do, just like what Paul Pierce said. Yo, I never even heard it. Like, I never even or use it like Michael Jordan would. Use it as motivation, to the point where Michael Jordan would even bring up certain people doubting him and make it up. There's stories of him making stuff up, or, you know, taking things completely out of context to give him some added inspiration and motivation going into something. But confidence is everything. Confidence, a healthy level of confidence. And what is delusional? Let's actually look up the word delusional. I want to look up the word delusional. Delusional means characterized by or holding false beliefs or judgments about external reality that are held despite incontrovertible evidence to the contrary. Why they have to throw that word in there? Incontrovertible. I've never said that before. A delusional person believes things that couldn't possibly be true. If you're convinced that the microwave is attempting to control your thoughts, you are sadly dead. All this stuff, I don't believe it. I don't even believe the definition of delusion. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how it's got to be. Yeah, that's their definition over there. They got me saying incontrovertible and all this other stuff. I don't even believe that. A false belief. What is a false belief? Think about this, characterized by or holding false beliefs. What is a false belief? Bro, I don't even deal with the beliefs. I'm not telling you that I believe I'm going to make it. I'm not telling you I believe I'm going to get this job, or I believe I'm going to accomplish this goal. I know it. There's no false beliefs. I know it. And either it's going to happen, which it is going to happen because I'm going to make it happen, or it's not going to happen, and you can judge me accordingly when that happens. But there's no false beliefs. Either you know or you don't. Either you know you can accomplish something, or you just have to have that belief mindset, which is never going to be as strong as the knowing mindset, the acceptance mindset, which is going to put out an energy of confidence rather than, oh, I'm still trying to do something. No, like, I'm confident enough that I know that this is going to happen. I'm confident that once I put in this work, sacrifice, do all these different things, that I'm going to yield. It's going to yield these returns coming back my way. So confidence is key. Let's finish off on that. Ronald Reagan said it best. Would it not be that we all agree to fight a force that is outside of the realm, not from the planet Earth? That would be the only time that we all come together. Yeah. The only time where the world would come together is when we were fighting some alien group or external group from a different planet. That would be the only time that we come together. Look at the Olympics. Matter of fact, this is why a lot of countries like going to war, because there's nothing that unites a country or a group of people like going against an outside group. It just is what it is. Otherwise, we will continue to fight and destroy one another for greed. I agree. Big Bro Steve wrote, confidence is king. Confidence stems from experience driven by hard work and perseverance. 100%. There is no confidence. There's no level of confidence that's going to come like accomplishing task leading up to that ultimate goal. This is why we talk about the things at the end of the show. What's in your bag? All those little things that we talk about that ultimately end up being big deals, because all of those little things that we're adding, keep stacking those wins, because it's just going to give us more confidence to go out there and say, well, I accomplished this. I won here. Maybe I can win here, or I can win here. I can win here. I can win here. And then it gives you the confidence to say, you know what? I can win up here because I'm so willing to take the little steps in order to get there. So hopefully that's hitting for y'all. Hopefully y'all understand what I'm saying. Y'all know what we do at the end of every show. We take 45 seconds, get that breath work, get that meditation, that mindset, whatever it is that you need to give yourself. We know it's Friday, beginning of every week. What do we set out to make this our greatest week ever? So maybe you'll take the 45 seconds to get refocused on what you need to do, what you need to accomplish today in order to bring that initial goal that we had in the beginning of the week to fruition. Every exhale, exhaling the negative energy. Every inhale, inhaling the positive. So what will we ultimately have? A recirculation of positive energy. So on that note, let's start. 45 seconds. Close your eyes if you're in a safe place, if you want to. If not, leave them open. Ready, begin. All right, let's get one last exhale. Exhale in the negative. Inhale. We finally got all the negative out. Now we're just inhaling positive. Y'all know what it is. Y'all know what we come here to do. Elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, as well as raising our standards to become the best leaders we can become that are needed now more than ever. And in order to grow into the people that we need to grow into to accomplish these amazing, outlandish, sometimes seen as delusional or arrogant goals that we know we're built for, putting in the work in order to come out on the other side a winner, an achiever. All right, strength and honor, onward and upward, get to that bag. If you don't know what I mean when I say get to that bag, all the little things that are obviously big things that are going to make sure that we're aligning and on the right path to accomplish purposeful abundance as we live in whatever we determine as our purpose, what is going to be our personal legend, the impact that we're going to make on this world, our community, our family, our friends, our village, and so on and so forth. You got to decide what's in your bag. Things that I focus on in my bag: peace, love, happiness, health, wealth, and integrity in everything that we do. On that note, please make sure y'all give me an extra like. Give me an extra like. Even if you already liked it, like it again. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Turn your notifications on. And oh yeah, once again, y'all know I got to hit y'all with it. I got to hit y'all with it. 1 second. 1 second. I got to hit y'all with it. I got to send y'all the link. I've been seeing a lot of people been pulling up on the Patreon. I saw Big Bro Steve on there. I've been seeing a lot of people pull up on the Patreon. So let me pull up on the Patreon. It sounds crazy with the P's. Let me make sure that I get y'all that link. Sign up for the Patreon. Sign up for the Patreon. And matter of fact, let me ask y'all this question. What I was thinking about doing in all of August, I said, you know what? We're just going to do the show in all of August on the Patreon. The reasoning is because it just makes more sense for us to have everything centralized on a Patreon. It's easier from a sponsorship standpoint. It's easier for the show to be supported. It's easier for people to get memberships, whether that's the paid membership or the free membership. We appreciate both, but it creates more of a value for our page. So that way, when we're working with different partners and different sponsors, we can make sure that we're making certain amounts of money so that we can pour back into the show. So I wasn't sure if we should do it on the Patreon, not sure, but maybe some shows in the future will just be just on the Patreon. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we get there, but those are kind of the thoughts. You guys can always share some ideas my way as well. On what's the best way to get people over there. Because I know it's hard to get people to go and download an app if you have to, or just to, get out of the current app. It's like I'm on Instagram telling you to go to Patreon. I know that's very hard for a lot of people, but there's the link. You guys do with it what you may. Would love for y'all to become members if y'all haven't already. But we're going to get out of here. Unc said, one love, always have a peaceful weekend. Be safe. Motivate yourself to always achieve your goals. No one can achieve them quite like you. I love that message. I love that message. Getting ready for this workout warm up on Patreon. All right, let's get it. Let's get it. And yeah, on the Patreon, there's workouts of all different levels. There's some gym workouts. There's some at-home workouts. There's some for beginners, some for a little bit more advanced. And yeah, we give a little bit of everything. So on that note, and my professor, she sent me the thumbs up. So that means we can get up out of here. Y'all have an amazing weekend. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. And I can't wait to see y'all on Monday. All right. Have a good one. You.